Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. Today I have a good friend, Rick Henriques. What's going on, man?
Hey man, not much. How's it going, Daniel?
I'm doing well, thank you. Rick, for those of you that don't know, worked together, you and I, both at a clothing boutique store. And we've been friends ever since. And we've been connecting. We both have a passion for entertainment. I myself, pursuing the passion of filmmaker, and you and public relations. So it's been really cool, I have to say, to see how we've grown. But you specifically, going from, again, that clothing boutique store to seeing you work for like Bell Media and, just impressive resume, really, I have to say, because I was going through your LinkedIn profile, and there's been a lot of responsibilities and a lot of accomplishments along the way.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, yeah, it's been so long since our, humble beginnings working in, boutique retailer, which is very fun, may I add. But now, we've both pursued different paths in entertainment, and it's so nice to connect again. And yeah, there's a lot for us to get into. I think, especially me coming with the PR aspect of things and you more on the film side, as
Hmm.
well as all the experience that you've been, getting from your chats on this podcast.
Right.
I'm so excited to catch up. And yeah, definitely a lot of work. For background, I was in PR. I interned at Bell Media, got hired there after my internship, and I've been there for on and off for about 4 years in total, almost 5 years actually. And yeah, so it's very fast paced, very fun. And of course, Bell Media owns the biggest Canadian television network. So
Yeah.
throughout there, I worked on a variety of different television channels and live events and
Hmm.
corporate initiatives. But some of them, I'd say, my main portfolio was the CTV channel group. So CTV comedy, CTV drama, CTV sci-fi, as well as everything that goes along with that, including the CTV app and CTV.ca, and then
Right.
also Discovery Network. So that would be Animal Planet, Discovery, and all the other random different like Discovery Science, Investigation
Yeah.
Discovery, MTV, much. And yeah, it's a lot, but it
No,
was
yeah,
very
there's quite a
fun.
lot. Yeah, I was like I said, I was going through like your experience, just to get up to date, up to speed with what you've been up to, and all that you've experienced, your experiences and skills. And I came across, all the brands you've dealt with, and I was really surprised because you think Bell Media, right? And you obviously know they own like, okay, CTV, maybe they Crave, and you start to look and you're like, oh, there's Gusto, there's Discovery, there's just a lot of industry leading brands, very popular that I come across. I watch content on my mother, my father. So it's amazing that you were part of it. Being involved in those experiences. With having said that, because we worked at a clothing boutique store, what made, and I noticed you also worked at Forever 21, right? I remember us crossing paths in the Vaughan Mills, or the good old Vaughan Mills. And I want to know, like, what made you transition from fashion to entertainment? Was this always your intention, or did this just happen by chance?
Yeah, it's actually no total fluke. It's so funny because I never even wanted to get into fashion. Really, it's just I went to school. I had left. I was working at as a manager at McDonald's for a couple of
Right.
years, and I had it was just high school job. You do it for a couple of years, it works, and then afterwards, in all honesty, I was just tired of smelling like greasy food, and so
I think you remember telling me that. Yeah.
and I was like, like let me just go get a job at the mall. And at the same
Yeah.
time, I was going to post-secondary, and at this time I was it's so funny because I wanted to get into psychology and criminology, and I wanted to become
Mm,
a behavior analyst.
right.
And then 4 minutes into my program, sorry, 4 minutes, 4 months into my
Yeah.
program, basically 4 minutes, I realized there's not that many jobs available for what I want to do, and so I took a year off and I decided, what do I really enjoy? And what I enjoy is music. And so I thought, what jobs can I get in music? Like I'm not a producer, I'm not, I'm creative in my own sense, but not
Yeah.
necessarily art. But I thought, I could promote it. And so,
Right.
people, I have all the relevant skills. And so I got into PR. And, of course, I started working at the mall and working in fashion just to pay my college tuition, really. And yeah, so through going to school and dropping out, and then finding my passion and trying to
Right.
find a job within that passion, that's what led me into PR and then into Bell Media, because the portfolio I first started on was focused on the MMVAs back when those were a thing. And so that's
Yeah.
what got me into that. And, I stuck around because I really enjoyed music and entertainment and everything in that realm.
Yeah, and like I said, when we first kind of connected, I remember that's one of the first things we found in common. It's like we both enjoyed entertainment, and we both were up to speed with pop culture, and even just expressing like my passion for filmmaking. You'd be surprised, but a lot of people either get turned off or don't know what to say to that. But you were immediately open about it. You were like, "Yeah, that's great. Go for it." There's a lot of great contacts if you ever need help. So you've always been really, really cool that way to me, and I've always appreciated that. And it goes to show, like like I said, your passion towards entertainment. For those that don't know, what is public relations exactly? What do you do?
So surprise, this is one thing where, similar to where you say you have a passion for film and people are kind of turned off or don't know what to say.
Yeah,
Like I get the same response all the time with public relations because
really.
a lot of people don't know what it is. There's very so many different forms of PR. So, there's I'd say the most common would be like corporate communications. So what I did at Bell was mainly publicity focused. Public relations is essentially, trying to not necessarily like shift a narrative, but just connecting an audience and a brand and
Right.
building trust and fostering a relationship. But then, that kind of spins off into other aspects where there's corporate communications where you're managing, how your corporate is portrayed to the public. And then there's crisis communications where you're, trying to keep yourself out of the news and avoid any crises. And then there's publicity and media relations, which are very intertwined, which is essentially the main part of what I did at Bell Media, which is, getting your product, which in my case was television shows
Right.
and television networks and live events into the news, and just trying to find, unique opportunities there. So yeah, there's a lot of different forms of PR, but essentially it's, building trust and a connection with the audience.
Yeah, and essentially you're telling stories, I should add, right? That's the impression I got. Like all the accomplishments that you had on your LinkedIn page gave me the overall, like, came to one word, and that was storytelling. And as a filmmaker, that's what I'm drawn to always. And I also studied marketing. I don't know if I told you that when we were working together. I was marketing at Ryerson University, and it has storytelling element as well. And they work, you worked obviously with the marketing department in public relations. Yeah, right. So you guys work closely. Like, yeah, I don't know who got on each other's nerves, but yeah, I'm sure there's been Rick has a bunch of stories about that. Who is more, yeah, with the department? Because I get story like different perspectives all the time. So people will tell us that marketing is a pain in the ass, and everyone will tell them that public relations is. Do you have like a preference who you work with, or
Um,
what's your take on it?
I think, marketing and PR are very closely intertwined, and the disconnect happens when they're not in constant communication. Like if there's
Right.
overlap, there's, perhaps like a lot of times, for example, in my experience, like I've worked on the marketing side as well, so I understand it. Marketing is very, you're planning things out very far ahead. PR is not to say reactionary, but a lot of times like you're sort of bound to every other department. So you're working with everything that everybody else is giving you and you're trying to make it work. Whereas marketing is the one who's kind of in control and has, maybe perhaps not to say a year planned out, but they'll have like a more general idea of what's coming and what's going. And we're the ones who
Right.
need to what's coming, what's going, so we can, just get the news out essentially.
Yeah.
So in my experience, it's great to work with marketing. I think it's the best thing. But
Hmm.
the problem is that there needs to be a certain level of communication, which often isn't there. And
Right.
so it's time for us to do our job when we don't know that there's, a certain product being released or there's a certain campaign. And essentially, I think PR and marketing work best when they're aligned together. And the issue is that oftentimes they're not, and marketing doesn't understand PR, or PR might not necessarily understand marketing or understand what's coming and what's, what the priorities are. And that's what the real issue is. But I think, if they're looped together, it's a dream team.
Yeah, no, for sure. The magic, that's where the magic happens if they work together. But my impression with marketing is, like you said it, and from my experiences, you kind of help establish the brand. You communicate it with the client, with the customers, to the public. But with public relations, it's a consistent conversation. Like for me, I would create these campaigns, set it all up, but then I felt like it was abandoned in a way because we moved on to the next campaign. Is public? Am I correct on this? Is public relations more of you're keeping that conversation going with what's established?
Yeah, I think, in most cases, yes, there are, the instances where, to your point, it's all about storytelling. That is,
Right.
the way we do what we do is through storytelling, creating stories and building upon them. And a lot of times I think that um, it's mainly keeping that constant conversation and keeping that brand familiarity and, just
Right.
trying to always be where people are and try to always, just be top of mind for consumers. But I
Hmm.
think that there are a lot of campaigns too where we just kind of like do it once and that's it. And those cases are normally like maybe perhaps like a product launch or like in television, a premiere of a show, you might promote like the premiere, mid-season finale, and then finale, and any other like casting news, but then in between it kind of dies down. And but again, when you're working on like over 50 different shows, that varies, and there's never really downtime in overall, but definitely like with different series and different genres and different things like that there is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's exploring different worlds, different avenues, and yeah, just finding that balance for sure. And
Mhm.
before I go into more about like Bell Media, because I want to know more about what you did exactly, and
Mhm.
obviously the outcome, which we'll discuss more. Do you see yourself going back into fashion and using your expertise in public relations, like for a clothing brand?
So I'm kind of in that realm right now. So the agency
Okay.
I work for, a lot of my clients are like e-commerce or fashion focused. And so essentially I'm working on like e-commerce, fashion, entertainment, and a bit of tech in there too. And it's fun, it's great, but it's not really for me. I don't think I would do it. I'd stick more onto the entertainment, music, television side. I just
Right.
more passionate about it. Some people are really into fashion, but for me, honestly, uh, not to say I couldn't care less, but it's kind of the same thing all the time, trends and
Yeah,
roundup.
yeah, yeah,
I like to really build a story, and sometimes it can be hard to build a story necessarily like around fashion. I
yeah.
like to. I feel like television and music have very passionate audiences, and so does fashion. But I align with the television and music audience, and so I like to be where they are too.
Yeah, more focused on that, and that makes sense, and I can understand. You really have to have a passion for it, like with anything, and a stomach for it, because it's constantly changing, and it can get frustrating. What was in style yesterday is in style today, and vice versa, right? And the story's always changing, and for yourself, it's more like, but are we progressing? Because that's why I like the idea you said about music. Music will always be relevant. Not that fashion won't, but music is strikes different emotions, right? There's nothing as like old music. There's no such thing. Like there's old music, but it's still classical to someone else. Like Old Town Road, right? Like they brought back country and they fused it with rap, right? Rap is like at the height of its game right now, and at one time it was non-existent or wasn't even as powerful or impactful amongst especially the white community back in the 1970s. So it's a different form of storytelling, and like you said, right, it's about tapping into that audience and figuring out where you see yourself aligned with, and I really do respect that, Rick, because that's something that I see myself as well, like with film and marketing. I kind of told myself, do I want to be the person at the desk analyzing films and seeing how they're going to perform in market, or do I want to be the person to actually create them? And you said a very good point. And you said a very good point about seeing what you align yourself with. Like you enjoy fashion. I know you have taste because we work together and I've seen how involved you were. But at the same time, yeah, at the same time, you were real with yourself and you said like, what will I excel at? What really is going to drive me? Fashion, as long as I look good, dress every day, whatever, but it's not going to push me as much as music or television. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's what leads me into my next point about Bell Media is, you've someone who's like, studied branding and social media communications. I appreciate what you do. And I noticed you worked for leading brands, right? Like we talked about Discovery, MTV, iHeartRadio. What kind of projects or events did you execute for these brands
Oh
or
my gosh.
anything specific? Yeah.
So many and so many fun ones. I think that's the
Yeah.
beauty. on industry leading brands. You're working on so many fun, different projects.
Right.
And from red carpets for premieres to red carpets for award shows, I've worked on various award shows, We Day, Junos, the Much Music Video Awards, also like live events and concerts. I've worked
That's
on
amazing.
the musical. I've worked on iHeart Radio Jingle Ball and various iHeart Radio events. So there's the music and concert side of it, which is so fun and it's such an adrenaline rush. And
Right.
in those days, you're really just working from even the weeks leading up to it, crazy event planning, coordinating press and interviews and building stories and trying to explain why this event this year is different, or just trying to get the news out there of the event, as well as managing everything on the day of, wrangling press and bringing them here, bring them there, making sure
Mm,
these don't go over. Even sometimes you're just holding up a sign on a red carpet with like the name of the talent in the background, so when a photographer takes a photo, they know who that is, or
right.
even lookbooks leading up to it. So there's that aspect of it where it's live events and music, and then some other fun projects I've worked on are, I'm sure you're very familiar with Bell's Talk Day.
Hmm.
So this is, a corporate initiative that we get to work on where on the TV, on the comms TV side, what we do is we connect with the distributors and the agents of basically everybody on our, or whoever we want to target on
Hmm.
our, roster of television shows and
Right.
programming. And so some of the fun things I did was, being in touch with different production companies and distributors, for example, like Fremantle, and saying, hey, The Voice is great. Here's an initiative we have coming. Not sure if you're interested. Hopefully you are, but we'd love to get a one-liner just quickly filmed on social that we could then post on our social media platforms. Or if even better, here's a content that we would produce, that we would draft with correct messaging, and provide it to them. Their team would film it and then post it on their social channels.
Okay.
So that's another fun aspect of the job. I have Nick Jonas saying words that I've written. I'm like, I still look back at that
Oh,
video. I'm like,
really? That I was gonna ask you. Yeah. Any interactions with these celebrities and crossing paths with your work?
yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So, and then there's the TV side of it and the glitz and glam. So on top of the music, you're working on TV shows and promoting them. And what that entails is, a lot of times you're just sort of providing screeners to media, before something releases, so they can kind of review it and give a preview to, to their audience.
Right.
But a lot of times what you're doing is coordinating these interviews and executing them yourself. So you're working directly with celebrities and it's very glitz and glam. But there's also a lot of uh, coffee runs and early breakfast orders. So you're like,
Wow.
it's very full. You're getting your hands dirty and then having to clean them up and be with talent too. So you're doing everything from planning their flights and their travel,
Oh,
booking,
wow.
making sure they have their per diems in their hotel rooms that they can order food if they want, and ensuring that everything they need in their room is done. Sometimes you're even going above and beyond and getting them tickets to a Raptors game if they're a Raptors fan and they're coming in,
Oh,
as
wow.
well as,
Like providing that hospitality, you really have to go above and beyond. And
yeah, yeah,
you're essentially like
especially,
a runner. You would be called a runner on set. Like,
yeah, yeah.
like, yeah.
You do everything. Like you're running, you're even just like planning. It's like almost being like a director, producer, a runner,
Yeah.
assistant. Like you are literally doing everything. Like you're behind the scenes, like talking to a producer, or you're like cutting the phone off during the interview and be like, oh, we can't talk about that. There's so much that goes into it. A lot of celebrities that you meet. Gosh, I have met countless celebrities, whether you're walking them on the red carpet or wrangling them to interviews, or just
That's
even
insane.
in
Wow.
the new world where you're just setting up virtual interviews. And
Yes.
get some fun ones, but like there's so many, like Fergie, Post Malone, Alessia Cara, Tyler Oakley, Prince Harry, Joe Jonas, Iggy Azalea, like literally anybody you can think of.
Yeah, yeah. And again, the music scene, right? Like you have some of the biggest stars you've
Yeah.
interacted with. That's amazing. And anyone you've met that like kind of threw you off, or like their personality was expected?
You know what? I think I've never met a bad celebrity ever. Like
Oh,
every
okay. Wow. That's great.
great. I find the issue is more with like agents. They're the ones who are
Mm,
and sometimes too the talent doesn't want to come off as the bad guy, so they get
of
their
course. Yeah, of course.
that probably plays into it. But
Yeah.
everybody I've been so great. I'm trying to think if there's anybody who really actually there is one person who's really stood out to me over the years, and if her name is Shanae Grimes. Now she's Shanae Grimes Beach, and she
Is
was on. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, is that the one that had a kid with Elon Musk or no?
No, so that's
Oh,
Grimes. So
oh, okay,
that's
that's Grind. Never mind. Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
Shanae Grimes is on like Degrassi, 90210.
Okay.
Like if you see her, you'll definitely recognize who she
Okay,
is.
yes, for sure. Yeah.
We had an event at Upfronts where I was essentially wrangling her for the day because on Upfronts, for anybody who doesn't know, is essentially when a network will show their content with their fall schedule and their summer
Right.
schedule.
Like a sneak peek.
Fall schedules. Yeah, it's like here's everything we're gonna have, and this is for people in the ad world to say, okay, we want to place our products here, here, here on these ads. Let's run commercials on this show and this show because it relates to our target audience, and
Hmm.
there's going to be a lot of people watching it, etc. And so our job on that day and leading up to it is planning and execution of the event and doing everything that's talent related. So getting them
Right.
also prepping the graphics and ensuring everything is branded appropriately. And then on the day of, we're wrangling these people. So we take them, sometimes they're speaking on stage, or sometimes they're just there for the red carpet to do an interview and things like that. So Shanae Grimes, I was wrangling her for the day, and she was just the sweetest angel, like
Nice.
person. And then I had worked with her a couple, I think almost a year later at the MMVAs,
Okay.
and remembered me, and I was shocked she even remembered me. And she was like waving me down, like, "Hey!" And I thought I was like, for sure, she's waving to like some celebrity behind me. And then I looked behind me and I realized there's nobody there, and I was like, "Oh my god, she's talking to me." And she came up to me, like, remembered me by name. Her husband was there, and her husband was such a sweetheart too.
Right, right.
And she was, I definitely would say, like my favorite celebrity. She might
Yeah.
not be a celebrity, but definitely the most impactful experience I've had.
Yeah, and that's a testament to your personality too. Because like I said, when I worked with you, I always remember you as like a bubbly, like happy-go-lucky kind of person, just very inclusive. Yeah, and I'm saying is that's why I see you in public relations or doing these kinds of events and wrangling these celebrities. Is you don't have an ego yourself, that you try to just do the job and that's it, right? It's not you're not trying to get involved with any personalities. Obviously, nothing's going to be smooth, like smooth sailing, but you do the best you can, and that's why Shanae Grimes remembered you, and you made an impact on her.
Yeah,
um you know
absolutely.
Another celebrity that I was thinking of, I don't know if you had time to communicate with him, but Post Malone, he comes across as a nice guy. Was he
So
cool?
not too much. It was more just like bringing him on to rehearsals and
Okay.
on the red carpet. But honestly, not too much communication there. Just kind of like, "Hey, I'm Rick. I'm going to be doing this for you today." And he's like, "All right,
Right.
cool, nice guy," but nothing like crazy. I didn't have an experience to the level of like Shanae Grimes. But Post Malone is a very interesting character, and if you ever see him, don't get too close.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I've seen him on talk shows. He's just, I think he's like that one of those true artists. Like all everything's in his. Yeah, he's just caught up in his own mind.
Really talented, but definitely just like doing his thing. Definitely exudes the character he is and the kind of like rough vibe. Not in
Yeah.
terms of personality, but just definitely like you can tell he just like came off a tour bus and is
Wow.
doing.
And he's just like showing up. Yeah, no, it's always interesting to hear. Like I remember, Quentin Tarantino, a big hero of mine. And yeah, I remember working as publicity and promotions for Warner Brothers, and one of my managers told me that she actually came in contact with him or saw him at an event, and she's like, "Yeah, the way I saw him that day, like how he was, you don't want to run into him." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Nah, he looked like he was in pain and tired and like just out of it. He passed out at one point." I'm like, "What?" And it's just like, yeah, no, it's just that's what they mean, I guess. Never meet your heroes, but in a way, it's interesting because these celebrities, like you say, you'll have one like a Shanae Grimes where it'll completely be like, wow, like unexpectedly be a great experience. And then Post Malone, it's like, yeah, you're exactly how I envisioned you, doing the job, being just caught up in his head, like as any artist, right?
Yeah, and to your point about like having ego and stuff, I think that when you're working with celebrities, that's something that we had a lot of issues with because personally, I don't care if you're like a celebrity or not. Like a person's a person. I'm here to do my job, like you said,
That's
and
good. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you for a photo. If you do that, you probably get fired. But
Right. Of course.
a big time, and like a lot of times we have like interns, for example, who are assisting, and they might get a bit excited and starstruck. And I think it's important to not be starstruck. Like I never really was. I'm sure I would be like, oh my gosh, like I'm working with this person
Right.
for the day. I never really thought like I know you don't really like bother them. You just do your job and go on with it. But yeah, it's also important to remember that they're just people at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
they have lives. It's lonely and they're traveling all the time. They're always tired. Like you're flying them in straight from, so we would get them maybe for like a day, fly them in from LA and New York, and they're coming off, this is like their Canadian part of the press tour.
Right.
They're in Canada and they're just like exhausted, just came off a red eye
Yeah.
flight. Maybe they slept for a couple hours. Usually they're coming straight from the airport, doing all these interviews and having to be on, and then afterwards going, back to their hotel room and doing it all over again. And they have this cycle where they're doing this for weeks, months, whatever it may be. So they're just people, and it's great to meet them and it's great to work with them. But it's important to remember that they are just people.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And sometimes, to be honest, especially in the world we live in, right, they're put at such on a pedestal, especially with social media, that people forget, like you said, that they're just like you and I, and they got their own problems. And put yourself in their perspective. Like they must be exhausted. And you made a very good point. They have to show up and like remember what they're talking about. They have to sell you on what they've been working on so hard for. Um, and yeah, that's why everything I think is a company when they arrive, because you're trying to make them not lose their mind in the process.
Yeah.
Right. It's a crazy industry for sure. But yeah, if you have a passion for entertainment, you love it. Right. And you wouldn't miss any day. Right. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. I would never like never. It's always fun. It's exciting. It's always something different. And you definitely have to be passionate about it. But I also say not like overly passionate to the part where you're like you're only in it to work with celebrities.
Yeah.
That's definitely a hindrance. And even if you are, just tone it down and don't let anybody else know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's smart. That's smart. Yeah. Cause it could definitely, as we learned in the corporate world, it could get back at you. There's politics. But yeah, so I wanted to know, also, like when you were given the responsibility of representing these brands to the public, what was most important to you? Not even the brands, I should say, also the celebrities. Like when you were doing your job, what did you hold dear to yourself?
Yeah, I think it's obviously being entrusted with that brand. It's a lot of responsibility, and it feels great also to know that you have that responsibility. But I think what was most important to me during my time, I think that especially our generation is coming into the world of entertainment and in the world in general, where there's a big shift going on. And so, for example, I was working in TV, and the big shift is that a lot of the people who are covering media and television and film are older white men who have been in their job for a long time, or
Yeah.
even just in general who don't understand the way youth works. And also you're working internally with people who might have a different mindset.
Yeah.
They might be some generation where they don't understand influencers, or they don't understand why you should not go to the same three people. Or sometimes you're working on content where it's a great program, it's a great show, but you're not necessarily working with someone who will understand that. So maybe you're working with a writer who is not going to like this diverse show, or this show that features XYZ, but there's not really another option because it's a smaller market and smaller industry. And so I would always try to make a conscious effort to really try to find um, non-traditional media people. So whether that's someone who comes, so for example, if it's a show about gay people, pitch it to somebody who's actually gay, so because they're going to love the content. Pitch it
Mm,
to the people who it's made for, because if I'm pitching that to a straight older white male who's going to be like, oh, I don't want to watch this,
yeah.
this isn't my thing, so they're going to give it a bad review, and you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. And I think
You're right.
what I tried to do throughout my time there was always try to not only find new people to talk about these things and these programs, but also find relevant people too. That,
Yeah.
someone who's passionate, and by when you're working for a big brand, you also have that responsibility to, put something like that in their portfolio, in their resume. It's like, hey, do you want to interview with, this person? Yeah, oh my gosh, I would love to. And then you can kind of help uplift their career as well.
Yeah, no, for sure, and that's a very valid point about keeping it relevant. A lot of people fail to do that, and we see it all the time. Like whether it was a brand failing or just working in offices. A big thing for me, like when I used to work in the entertainment field, um, the people higher up than me, like obviously they had their own opinions and they had their expertise per se, like their tenure, but at the same time they just felt so out of touch. And you almost want to like jump in there and say, I don't think millennials will like that. And I remember, actually, it comes to mind when Snapchat came into a boardroom meeting and they were pitching a whole bunch of ideas. They were people like directors and VPs, but they're our parents' age, right? 50s, 60s, and they were not enthused, like the people that came in, because they were in their 30s, the people that were representing Snapchat. And I remember I just spoke up and I just pitched an idea. I can't remember for the life of me what it was, but I remember they were drawn to it. And one guy actually wrote it down and said, you know what, we're going to think about that. I actually like that, because I was thinking with the consumer in mind, right? Snapchat is millennial centric. They're targeting 18 to 34. And, they want to hear, like you said, from people that will view that content. And I think it's so advantageous. And if you put aside the politics, it'll benefit the brand and the organization as a whole.
I think, it's really important to, at the end of the day, think about, what is the goal? What is the mission? Is what you're going to do, is what you're doing or what you're going to do taking you there? And if not, reevaluate, and you see
Yeah.
this, for example, with TikTok, where it's the same situation where Snapchat was not too long ago. And you have brands who are scared to get onto TikTok, or, they don't see the value, for example. But like, you look at a platform that's growing so quickly like that, and why wouldn't you want to share your audience there? And, if you're promoting something that's towards a younger demographic, why wouldn't you go there, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
silly. But yeah, I think, especially one other thing too to mention is that a lot of times throughout my work experience, I've actually, been assigned to certain projects because I come from, a certain background, or I
Right.
have a certain age. And I think that a lot of millennials, like I've been in so many meetings or, brainstorming sessions where it's like, okay, well, what do you think? Because you're a millennial, you understand.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
That's
It's
good.
but I think people have to definitely be open to it. And even if they're not, it can't hurt to flag, because they don't know anything outside of their own experience.
Hmm.
And so it's important for us as millennials to sort of, flag those items. And, it makes you look good too in the end, because if you know what you're talking about, you're going to go far and you're going to be successful.
Yeah, and I feel you made a good point too, and this is something I try to argue. It's just become now the reality regarding baby boomers, that they're that generation, and even before them, that stayed in a job. They had the luxury to, and the security, I should say, for like 40, 50 years. And you have millennials like us, right? That they have that they're versatile. They're able to bounce around jobs, and they're able to have all these different experiences, right?
Mhm.
And that's what you were saying about how you have these older white men typically that have been in this job for a very long time, and they don't have another perspective on the industry that you're approaching, right? So that's a very valid point, and that's something that should be kept in mind, right, when you're dealing with these brands.
Absolutely. And, even, not just the age aspect, but the diversity aspect of it too. You're working with people who, like, there's no way someone who, is not perhaps cultured is going to greenlight a show about something, with a diverse cast or a diverse storyline, because they just don't understand it, which is why it's so important to have, you know, not only the cast reflect, the real world, but also have teams like, behind the cameras to reflect that as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good point. And it's when we were talking about media, and about, like, you were working at Bell Media, I do remember, unfortunately, when I came across you once. We passed by each other in the mall, and I just caught up with you, how you've been, whatever. And you basically, yeah, you shared some unfortunate news that they laid off a significant number of their employees, right?
Yeah. And that's
And
too.
sorry.
And that's very, sorry not to cut you off, but that's very common in the industry as well.
Yes, yes. And no, so that's why I brought it up, because when I graduated and I started a job, I was at Entertainment One. It was a maternity leave contract,
Mhm.
with the hopes, with the intentions that I would stay full time. But I learned the hard way that that's just part of the industry, because everyone thought that was going to be my job for a very long time, and it just didn't happen that way. But I wanted to know, like with Bell Media, what was the reason for them to make this unexpected decision?
So I think, COVID definitely played a big factor. There was, Bell Media is, a small division of Bell overall, realistically. Like Bell
Right.
Media is a huge, but you also have Bell Television Mobility. There's so
Of
many
course.
different facets of it. And I think, when you have all these, from a business perspective, you have all these businesses that are taking a hit. You're offering, for example, free data for people who are working from home, free data overages. Whereas before, would make money off that. I think that that can, make an impact on business, and down to the point of like television. You look at, television. I definitely don't think it's a dying industry. I think the issue is that people are not adapting to certain things. But you
Right.
look at, for example, streaming. If you're slow to enter the streaming world, that is going to cost you long term. And I think that that is something that a lot of um, companies in the television industry dealt with and suffered. And we had our own struggles trying to enter into that world and get the news out there. So I
Right.
think that it was just a mix of bad timing, business, and business is shifting also. I think in addition to COVID and businesses taking a hit financially, you also have consumers who are shifting, and now nobody watches TV real time. It's very
No.
rare. Most
Yeah.
people are, or watch, catch up on the streaming platform. And so I think it was just a mixture of all these factors. And I'm glad to know it was a seniority based thing because I was unionized. But
Right.
the people, like, you look at entire newsrooms that were shut down, and there's so many great talented people. And to be honest, there's a lot of people who didn't expect it would affect them. Like, even for myself, like, my position was just eliminated. I'm working on 15 different television channels, and you're thinking like, okay, well, you're not replacing this role, so who's going to do all
Yeah.
this? It's kind of like, and especially like the role that you're in is like a coordinator slash acting publicist. You're doing a lot of work, and now you're burdening the rest of the team who are already swamped. So it's definitely unfortunate for so many people. I don't even know how many people in total were laid off, but I would estimate perhaps like close to like 1,000.
Oh
Um,
wow. I remember them reporting like 200, so there might have been even more
oh,
numbers.
that was just in
Oh.
one. That was in one
Oh
day.
wow.
I,
Wow.
it was
Oh, okay.
sort of like a string of events. I think also, new year, and you're looking ahead and you're saying, my business is sort of impacted. How can I, deflect that cost? And so you look at labor, of course,
Of
first thing,
course.
and you make the cuts, and you do what you can to make it work. And it's unfortunate, of course, it sucks for everybody involved. Obviously, the company doesn't want to overwork their people, and the people don't want to be overworked, and people don't want to be laid off. But
Of course.
it's very common in entertainment also to shift, and that's why it's very important to stay constant, I think. And it's very important to adapt. So I think whatever role you're in, you can take those experiences and take them elsewhere. The
Right.
tough part is when we work in entertainment, specifically in Canada. That there's not a broad amount of opportunities. At times there are, but people stay in their job for a long time, and people it's everybody wants to be in entertainment, right? So not a
Right.
lot of people. A lot of it is contract work. Maybe you're filling a maternity leave, or perhaps it's based on a certain show or program or initiative or whatever it is. So a lot of it's contract work. So you just have to stay constant and not really let it get to you.
That's
And
good.
it's important to look at the industry overall. I think television's not dying; it's just shifting. And you look at the
Yeah.
streaming picking up. So, and also too, you have shows that are out of production, and that takes a hit on business too, because you don't have that new show to launch in September now because of all these COVID delays. So I think it was just a mixture of things, but it's important to just keep your head up and understand that it's nothing personal.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's such a positive attitude that you had. And I want to know, like, was that your initial reaction when it happened? Were you kind of like prepared, or you just kind of
Honestly,
adapted to this
I was
mindset?
definitely shocked. I was definitely
Oh, okay.
shocked. For weeks prior to, you see a lot of like, you don't expect someone of my pay grade to be laid off. You're like, okay, they're going to go for like the big wigs and get the people who make a lot of money, which
Right.
was the case. And then after, at a certain point, which was like that round where there was about 200 people where you saw those articles for, that was when it started hitting the lower levels. And so, I mean, I definitely was surprised, but because our team itself was so busy, I myself was so busy. I was in the middle of a couple of big projects, but feel like I'm always a pretty positive person. So
That's good.
just took it on the bright side. I was like, this is a great time to start a new chapter and see what else is out there. And so I definitely did that. But I think, it's definitely important to stay positive. And at first, of course, you're dealing with the shock and you're like, wait, I don't work there anymore. I don't do this anymore. And you get people contacting you because it was also so quick. Like it was like I got a call. I was like, oh, today's your last day. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Well,
Oh,
you
they didn't
just
even
kind
give you a
of
two
work with it.
week. They didn't give you like
No,
a notice or anything.
yeah, no. But well, it's a unionized position, so
Right.
they that. But it
Right.
was just like as per that was kind of the business policy. This is
Right.
your last day because it's from a business perspective, and they got to cut those costs
Of
right there.
course. Yeah. Right away. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And one thing to take away is your energy, right? Like that's something that's very admirable because a lot of people would get down and out and you know vic- play the victim, right? Like why me? Why this happened? But you were prepared and you knew what you were getting yourself into. As much as the entertainment business is fun, it could be very cutthroat that way, and there's no sense of security really
Yeah,
in that particular field, right? So we can relate on that for sure. And yeah, that's great. I'm really happy that you have a positive, healthy attitude towards it.
yeah.
And
Sorry,
sorry, go ahead. No, sorry, go ahead.
I think
You
you
cut off.
always want to attitude with everything, but especially with this, like nobody wants to be in that situation. Like even the people I was dealing with in that situation, are like, I'm sorry, I have to tell you this, and like I didn't take it personally at all. Like
Yeah,
it sucks because I love what I did and I love what I do and who I did it with.
of course.
At the end of the day, you look at it like, okay, I'm young. Millennials are so, I think, in comparison to, boomers, for example, they're very quick and to bounce back and also, not really identify themselves with a career. I think because we have more of a mindset where like we are able to, shift industries or shift jobs. You see people who are switching jobs like every 1 to 2 years, whereas you look
Yeah,
at your parents' generation, it's more so you stay there for life. You're there for 15 to 40 years, and it's your first job and your last job, and you think that we don't really have that mentality, which helped. Um, but yeah, it's definitely important to stay positive and stay on your feet, and never take it personally because I mean, unless you're being fired for like a personal reason, I think
yeah, of course.
it's a business decision.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and you said it there about like that generational difference. Just seeing and I feel like the millennials are in the crossfires, like they're in between. Like the Gen Zs, like they might have a different approach or maybe a mentality because it'll be easier. We'll have the millennials backing them up. But I don't know. From my experience as a millennial, you have that conflict, whether it's your parents or your peers, your elders, whatever have you, that, like you said, they're always questioning, like, for example, what is public relations? Like, for me, I understood what it was. I knew it was, a reputable career path, and it's something that people study. But if you tell that to my grandfather, let's say, or, like I said, my dad, they'd be like, what do you do exactly? Right.
I do that all the time. My family's like, I don't really know what you do, but I'm like, I'm like, I get people in the news. It's the simplest way to explain.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
I bring home the cheddar. No. Yeah, right. No, that's good, man. That's good. And one thing that I took from this conversation is that you love what you do, and that's so important. And that's what I strive for myself. And that's why I think I'm pursuing this challenging path of being a filmmaker. Is it's not predictable, it's not formulaic, but there are moments when it brings me a lot of joy. And I think that's what people can take from this conversation is just being persistent on your path, right? And not taking it personal when things don't turn out your way, and realizing the bigger picture, right? Like yourself, is that you're young and you got a lot of experience under your belt, and you're gonna use that, apply that to your next decision.
absolutely. And I think, it's a positive future. There's a lot of things changing. Things are opening up again. And, that includes the entertainment industry, which is really taking a hit. I mean, you look at people who are event planners, like what events are you planning?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, exactly.
I have a friend who was an event planner, and like she was out of work for a long time. And then, things started picking up again for her. But for a lot of people, it's a lot worse, and I think that things are slowly getting better, which is great for myself and for everybody else. And you look at, even within my industry, so, PR and television, you see Netflix now is opening up a Canadian
Yeah,
office,
I saw that. Yeah.
definitely keeping an eye there. And
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
new and exciting opportunities. And, things like this, people lose their jobs, people get new jobs, and it's an exciting way to learn and grow and challenge yourself to do something new too.
Yeah, and the important thing too is not to compare, right? In the digital age, social media, we have, it's human nature, right? We, where are we in our lives? We look at our age and we say, like, should I be promoted? Should I be having this job? Should I not be doing this? Should I get paid this? And it could get really convoluted, and it can kind of deter you. It can distract you from what the end goal is, right? What you want out of your life.
It's such
So I think that's really cool. Sorry, what was I saying?
Oh, so I was just gonna, it's such a great point. I think, also we struggle a lot too with like, I've been in this, for example, I've been in, this position for X amount of years, and you look at other people who, you might have gone to school with, or you might have started at a company at the same time with, and you see people growing or people, regressing, and it's natural to compare yourself. But I think that it's very important to consciously not compare yourself and just say,
Yeah.
what, I have when the timing is right, the timing is right, and just follow your heart. And if you have to make a jump, make a jump. But if not, stick it out. And I think that as millennials, we're um, very keen to follow our hearts, and that works out for us.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And that's all we can ask for, really, when we go forward and pursue our careers. But I want to thank you again, Rick, for coming on the podcast and discussing your story, discussing your journey. I'm excited for what's to come next for you. You have a lot under your belt, and yeah, looking forward to more conversations with you. If you ever want to come back on the podcast, document the journey, see what's up to date, any celebrities you run in, anyone you have to wrangle. Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure to catch up with you again. And I know we'll be in touch. And it's just so nice to chat with someone who is in the industry and gets it. And so excited to follow along with you too, and just see where this takes you. I think it's a great initiative, and it's a great way to find a lot of unique experiences and different viewpoints. So I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. And yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Keep persistent, keep constant, follow your heart, as Rick says, and everything I feel will work out in your favor.
Yes,
So having
absolutely.
said that, thanks again, Rick, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Daniel. I really, really appreciate it.